first point of news, Jake, is that the Ghost of Tsushima movie has been announced, and it's going to have the same director that the John Wick movie had.
I'm curious. I didn't know this was happening, but I am curious how they're gonna, because they got the John Wick guy, right? So you assume that they're gonna have this be this fucking action fight fest, right?
Well, I would hope it's kind of like that, kind of.
But the problem is that like that's not what I got out of Ghost of Tsushima. Right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the character, goes down this dark path and he does a lot of fighting and does a lot of like, killing of bad guys and stuff like that. But it's still he's still very like honor driven and like, there's a little bit more kind of, let's just say like culture to it. Yeah. So like, I hope it just doesn't end up being like this John Wick cross Kill Bill thing where it's just fucking an hour and a half of what's his name? Jin Sakai. Jin Sakai, just like literally running around, just murdering the shit out of everyone. I mean, maybe that's what they want and that could be cool. Yeah. But hopefully they like actually get into like the Mongols invading Tsushima Island and all this stuff and the actual like story parts of it and not just the fighting. Yeah. My take on this is I had our listener LJ wrote in and was talking to me briefly about this private conversation he and I were having. And he was just asking what my opinion was. And my first thought was kind of in the line with what you were saying. Like, there's so much more to Ghost of Tsushima than just the fighting, right? It's more about him trying to preserve his country and his place and his home from being invaded. And so you can tackle that in a couple different ways in a movie, right? But the brilliance of the game was in its quiet moments, I think. And in the moments where you're meditating, it really helps build the setting, the meditation, and then him having these personal friendships. And he was the last guy. He was like the last one, like the last person that could defend. He had that bestowed upon him. He felt the need and the honor to protect his people and to protect his homeland. So this movie could be really cool. What I don't want to see is for it to become like a Japanese Braveheart, right? Where it's just that. Yeah, because my initial like thought was, do you ever see that movie The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise? Oh yeah, sorry, I thought it was Keanu Reeves. No, I haven't. Yeah, I mean it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but like the whole idea is that like the samurai way of life is dying, and the Americans are now teaching the Japanese how to be a modern military and all this stuff, and it like basically culminates into this final battle between the fucking Japanese modern military and the remainder of the samurai, right? And like I wonder if it's the stories are different, right? The stories are different, but I wonder if like there's going to be an element of that where it's like the old you ways. Can't stop the fucking Mongols, right? But we're going to try. You know what I mean? And they could make it good. I mean, it could be good. Honestly, if it is a freaking gore fest from beginning to end for an hour and a half, and that's all that it is, that might be the best video game movie. If it's done well. You know what I mean? Right. Like, if it's done well. Like, instead of them trying to make it really story-oriented, but not really willing to go all the way with it, so it ends up just being this half-hearted, shitty movie, like, with terrible writing and stuff. Like, if they just... Maybe they just embrace the action part of it and they just make it about the visuals and all that stuff. It might make a good movie. I don't know if it'll make a good Ghost of Tsushima movie, but I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting. Part of that game that was what was really cool was the relationships and the way that he kind of lobbied himself and offered himself to help the different factions in order to get them on his side to help him. So, you had your thieves, and then you had like the monks, and you had these, without spoiling too much, and it was him winning over and winning their trust over to be like, listen, this is an important thing. This is worth fighting for. I need your help. That kind of thing. And that was really important. And I think that could make for a good story, is like these little interstitial kind of
I don't know, I guess chapters within a movie of like, okay, here he is with the monks, here he is with the thieves or the Ronins or whatever, and then here he is with thieves, and then here he is, and then leading up to one huge like final battle. That could be cool as long as they build those relationships naturally. They don't feel forced. It could be cool.
I hope that the director goes and watches some of those, and I'm sure that he'll draw inspiration from it anyway, but like, because the game is, but like, I feel like they would really be missing out. They would be missing the mark if they didn't go back and watch some of these old fucking samurai movies, which is what Ghost of Tsushima is based on.
Right.
So if the movie doesn't have an aspect of that in it, it will be a failure. As far as a Ghost of Tsushima movie goes, it might still be a good movie, but it will miss the mark as far as what that franchise is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, as far as like all the movies that they've talked about, as far as Sony video game IP or whatever, this is the one that actually has me the most interested. Because I don't give a shit about, I don't want to see an Uncharted movie. It's going to be terrible because Uncharted is such a beloved franchise. And even Tom Holland came out and was like, yeah, I don't really feel comfortable with the way that I acted in that movie, which is like, okay, then the movie's gonna suck. Thank you.
It'd be so funny if the movie didn't suck and it was like really good.
Yeah,
he just threw it under the bus and no one watches it. It's like, oh, this movie's actually good.
I mean, even like the best video. What's the best video game movie ever? Probably like maybe Ratchet and Clank, and even that wasn't great. I mean, it was entertaining, but it wasn't great. Maybe the only other one I can think of is like Mortal Kombat, and that's not because it was a great movie, but because it had this. It was like this cult hit. And it had this killer soundtrack.
Didn't you like the Resident Evil movies?
They were all right. Yeah. I mean, I think that they were good enough that they obviously spawned a bunch of sequels, but I don't think that they were great Resident Evil movies, if that makes any sense.
If you want to know what
I was just going to say they could have called them something else and not called them Resident Evil, and they would have been fine.
Yeah. So I actually...